what really happens, when you really transform? You develop presence, the power of presence. Now, presence could mean different things to different people. After all, words mean differently to different people. So let me make a provocative statement and then open the floor to the panelists. How about saying presence is all about being present without being present? So the power of presence is all about being present without being present. And so now, Ricardo, would you agree with me? Or you have a different view? And we pass the mic on from Ricardo, it goes to Debra, Ulrika, Sandra, Joel.
So hi everybody, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to know you all and to learn from you. I agree that when you have that type of presence that exists without your physical presence being there, in the sense of our father, our mother, they can have a presence over us without being in the room, and even without being here on this earth. They can still make their presence noticed. And also great leaders, great communicators can leave their presence with us after they leave the room. Sometimes some people still connect Apple to Steve Jobs, and he's not present there anymore. And so, yeah, I think that when you touch somebody in a meaningful way, you can leave your mark, your presence, long after you are gone.
Thank you so much. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Debra Dupree. And I'm reminded of the words of Maya Angelou. People will never forget what you said or what you did, but they will remember when presence without presence speaks exactly to that. And the other thing about being a great leader is the mood of your leader, even when you don't say a word, can ripple throughout the organization, influencing the mindset and therefore the behavior of everybody around. So how we show up matters. Your presence matters.
Thank you. Glad to be here and on this panel today. So I work with my clients with a lot with age and heart rate variability. So I want to kind of bring that into the discussion because I see presence as not just a soft skill, but it's a biological state. And when we tap into that part of the nervous system, which is the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, that's really when we become present. So a state of presence is what's previously been said, is also that how we show up in a room and what do we send from our presence to the people around us. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I heard this statement about presence when you're not even present. And just thinking about all of our history, our culture, everything that has come before us influences how we see the world. And if we think about the future and how what we have accomplished or said or done influences those that we have connected with. And that's how our presence can influence even when we're not here. Thank you.
Hey everyone, again, Joel. It's interesting because presence is so huge. Obviously in sales, if you're not present, you won't close anything, right? If you're speaking to a human and you're not listening, you're not paying attention, you're looking at a phone, or if they're not paying attention to you, it's game over. And so I think the interesting thing about presence to me, in a sales perspective, is how much do you actually give a damn about people, right? Like, do you actually care? Because I feel if you really care about helping people, you will be present. It's impossible to not be present if you actually care, right? So I feel like presence is a heart condition. A heart condition because if you truly care about somebody, you will be present. And if you're not present, then I would say, hey, maybe let's check our hearts.
Hi everybody, Dr. Debra. And being present without being present, what hit me was our legacy. We all want to leave a legacy. And our actions, our writings, our conversations, leave a legacy with our family, with our friends, with other people that we influence. And so we really need to be conscious of what kind of legacy we're leaving for people.
Well, thank you. You see now, what we heard just now, Steve Jobs, he's no more, still present, Michelangelo. Two speakers said, how do we show up? And I think that's a very important thing. So Ricardo, how would you like, or what advice would you give to the audience? What should they do so that they show up? And be present without being present.
I'm going to stand on the words of Joel there, because I think that when you are genuinely interested in the person that is in front of you, it's impossible not to be present in the moment, not to pay attention, and not to really connect. And the inverse is almost impossible. We as humans have come to a sense of smelling the BS in other people. And so I think that when we are talking to somebody that is not there, and that we know that in some way they are not genuinely interested in what we have to say, that connection doesn't work. And if that connection doesn't happen, we are not able to show up for them. So I think it's more of a mindset. Then, of course, if we have that mindset, there's a set of tools that we can operate, but without that mindset, nothing else works.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the neuroscience a little bit on this, because our communication is really made up more by our physical presence, our behaviors, and our tone, volume, and voice. And we haven't even said a word. Oh, produce a different reaction, right? And so only 7% of how we communicate is really the words. And so when we talk about choosing our words wisely, it becomes even more readily evident that, again, from a neuroscientific perspective, we've heard about smiles, we've heard about movement today, and the motor control centers of our brain are actually located on either side of our emotional brain, the limbic brain interior. And so when we move, get up in a tense moment, or we have a glass of water, even a sip of water, we influence how our brain is working. And so, again, how we show up matters, and there are small things each of us can do to pay attention. And that's why coaches can be so important, to give us external, observable, objective feedback. How do you show up? How do people respond to you? And going back to the smile, it gets into mirror neurons. We reflect what we see. And so it's really hard, as is being said today, when you smile, it actually relaxes your face, slows down your brainwave activities, and therefore allows you to be in the moment. So you can actually move forward with grace, rather than a reactive, emotional moment.
I would say it's a lot about what intentions we set prior to being somewhere. So for example, what the intentions were when we entered this room today, what were our intentions throughout the day. That becomes very quite obvious in also what the energy we permit, or what's the word, we're setting out to everyone around us in the room. So how we tie it into neuroscience is, what are we thinking, how do we want it to be, and what are we setting out in that state that might affect others around us.
Thank you. Well, what I heard the question was, is what was presence if you're not present? And I started thinking about the International Coaching Federation's core competencies. And the newest one, number 2, is about maintaining a coaching presence, a coaching mindset, of showing up authentically for your clients in a way that honors where they're at. So we're not trying to influence them, but we are showing up with their energy, with where they are, responding to their questions and how they, what they need from us, instead of us trying to influence them or guide them in a way that they don't want to go. So if you do give a suggestion with the newest core competency, they just updated it and it says something along the lines is you can now give suggestions, which kind of takes it into the consulting world a little bit, but it's without attachment. So when you are coaching someone, if you do put out a suggestion, let the client then decide what they want to do with it. And it might be putting it down, and it might be rolling with it. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think my first answer probably answered this question better, but I'll give a different spin, I suppose, on showing up and what it means to be present. I would say presence has everything to do with energy, right? If you have good energy, you have high energy, it's a lot easier to be present. But if you find yourself tired or you're lethargic or you're fatigued, then it's going to be tough to be present. So I think when I check myself, like showing up to an event, showing up to my call, showing up to meet people, I put energy at the forefront of the way I want to operate. So if I'm tired, I'll get some energy drinks. It'll get me through a few hours, right? But I think energy is so important to the way you show up and be present.
I'm kind of going from there. I've heard the phrase that people don't care what you have to say unless they feel that you care. And that's an old saying. But when I was in sales for a lot of years in different things, but I was selling cars. And I didn't even know what I was doing, but my sales manager came to me and he said, just go, Debbie, go make friends. And that's what I was doing. I was making friends. I was actually listening to what people were telling me. And too many people, when we do sales, don't do that. They have, oh, I want you to buy that, or I want you to have this. Whether it's our coaching program or it's selling a car, we have to listen to people. We got to understand and really ask questions, and then they feel heard, and you're much more likely to get a sale.
Well, if you permit me, can I sum it up this way in 4 words? That the power of presence, right, demands, number 1, energy, like Joel said. Number 2, authenticity. Unless you're authentic, people won't bother about you. And when you're authentic, obviously trust develops. And trust is a very important thing. And lastly, empathy. And truly, I would replace the word empathy with compassion. Because compassion is empathy plus ambition to help. And that makes the entire difference. Tell me one thing, why are people failing? You see, we are talking so much about presence, empathy, compassion everywhere. The internet is full of it. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of coaches. Still, we are seeing no difference in society. Why? Where are we going wrong? And where is the society going wrong?
Well, if I knew that.
He might not be here.
We're starting with the easy questions then, okay? Yeah, well, I think I obviously do not have the answer, but maybe some thoughts on the issue. And my first thought is we are probably looking to a quick fix too often. And we are applying a bandage over something that a bandage cannot solve. And so maybe, like Joel was saying, all of these internet gurus, IA, now this is the quick fix, you should do this, and before IA it was something else, and before something else it was another thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes these are all quick fixes to help you think that you are doing something when actually you are not taking care of the real issue, like a pill for your headache, but you are not curing the cause of your headache. So I think mainly my first thought is this, but I'm sure that Debra has the right answer.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, boy. Well, I have a couple things come to my mind. I first think about Stephen Covey's seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. And that's where we're all talking about listening and asking good questions about where are people coming from. I think that another reason why people are not succeeding for so long, last 20, 30, maybe even more years than that, people get hired and promoted based on what they intellectually know. They're not generally equipped with the people side of things about how do you connect, how do you communicate, how do you listen. And so they're really lacking the people skills. And I know that you were saying that, soft skills, let's reframe that one. It's hard to communicate. It's challenging to connect, particularly when we have different ideological viewpoints. And yet we need to bridge that connection because people are not fully connected. And I think we're all seeing the effects of our social media and the artificial intelligence. I'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, how do we use our curious questioning when using artificial intelligence? How do we get to where we want to go? And so we're still in control, but we're shaping the conversation. So, my 2 cents.
So I'm going to come back to what I said previously about which I see as we can't change unless we have the fundamentals. And the fundamentals is we don't sleep, we don't move, and if we don't feed our bodies with the right nutrition for our brains, there's no way that we're going to be able to change because we're not setting up ourselves for change. So I always come back to that there are just biological things as human need. And we're seeing that people are sleep deprived, people are stressed, they're eating rubbish food, they're feeding themselves with energy drinks, and we see this younger and younger down the age, and we're creating, unfortunately, for a young generation not to actually feed their bodies properly, to be making good decisions, I think this is a heart, I feel really strongly about this because children don't know, but we as adults know. And so the most fundamental, if we want to see change, is we have to really get the basis of it. As humans we need to sleep, we need to eat properly, and we need to move. And from there we can start making changes. But if we deprive of all those, it's hard. And then we can't expect ourselves to do changes when we don't have the fundamental to live on.
Thank you. Yes, this is a hard question. And as you think, and there was a speaker earlier, is we have to work on us as individuals, us as a community, as a society, and globally. We cannot just fix one person at a time and then throw them back into the cesspool and say, stay clean. And that's where we are right now, is we're working typically one-on-one or with a small group within an organization. And at this time, the momentum is just not there we might make some inroads. And then something happens, there's a huge disruption, and then it just gets like a tsunami and wipes away. And then you get the opportunity to start rebuilding. I like the gentleman in the corner who talked about authenticity as you're doing and working with individuals. And as we work with individuals, being authentic, working small groups into larger groups and beginning to get our voice, and so we can get a consistent message. Because a lot of people think a consultant is going to come in and tell me, or a coach is going to come in and tell me exactly what a consultant does. And so understanding what is our real role as we're trying to transform people so that we are sharing something and people understand what it really means to get coaching or to get consulting or get mentoring. Because they each have their own unique positions.
I think the answer lies to like everything in life, a lot to do with balance, right? And this is word called dichotomy. So the question is, why are people failing? Why are businesses failing? Or why are we failing as a society? And I think it's because there is no balance. So what do I mean by that? I think far too many business owners and people are self-motivated by self-interest. And nothing wrong with that, because we're human. But I also think then on the extreme, there's people that only care about others, but then their own cup runs dry. And then they get burnt out, they get exhausted, and they say, man, this coaching industry is brutal. I care so much about people, but I never get paid, right? And I think that's the problem, is because we are operating in two extremes. In reality, the answer should be finding a happy balance in the medium where you need some self-interest, but you also got to care about other people, right? And I think, yeah, if we find balance, like in many things in life, we will find the answer.
Wow, that was good. I think, yeah, definitely the balance. And it's not all what we feel, it's about we feel linked with what they need and what they feel. And we can't just say, oh, I have this program, you're going to do it this way, because that's not giving them individuality. We have to give individuality. We have to meet people where they're at. But I also agree with small groups, because too often what I've seen in any kind of, it's not therapy, but it's like therapy, coaching is like therapy, is where a person gets stuck and they don't budge from it. But when you can get groups of people together, like we're doing right now, talking and sharing, then you can start to open up new doors. And they can start to open up new doors, and you can learn from each other.
Yeah, love it.
Well, thank you. You see, we are talking about the power of presence, and this relates to human beings. It relates to transformation. And in transformation, like Ricardo said, there's no space for quick fix. There's absolutely no space. There's no space for instant gratification. It's not instant coffee. It takes time. Somewhere we have forgotten how to pause. We are running. We need to learn how to pause. And I think the biggest challenge is holier than thou attitude. I'm beautiful, so are you, but I'm a little bit more. Your dog is lovely, but my dog is slightly better than yours. You know, this attitude, which is a human weakness, is somewhere pulling us down. That is my belief. And the other challenge which I see is that we are looking linear. We are thinking linear. Life is not linear. It's a network event. You've got to look at the ecosystem and address the ecosystem. And I think this is where we are failing. Okay, moving ahead. Communication was a part of it. Now, power of presence and communication. How do you link the two? Because if power of presence means being present without being present, my mistake, being present without being present, then how does communication come into it?
Without unveiling too much of my talk that I'm going to give tomorrow morning, so you should all be here to listen about this communication issue. I think that it is the second most important thing that we need to do as humans, because the first one is to breathe. And we heard a lot today about the importance of really breathing, not just breathing to survive, but really understanding and using our breathing. And communication is like that, because it's the second most thing that we do when we are awake, and some of you also do it in your sleep. You should be careful of that, because somebody can listen what you say. But yeah, it's the number one thing that helps us convey our message. So without properly owning our communication, you can be the best person in the world with the best product or service in the world, in the best company. If you cannot communicate that, nobody will know, and you will not make a mark or an impact or a legacy in anybody's life. So yeah, I think it's like the thing.
Thank you. I had the good fortune of being exposed to a family-owned business growing up. Not only was it a family-owned business owned by my grandfather and father, but I grew up in a family of 9 kids. Talk about a team. And I was on the younger end, so I had a chance to really observe people, and that opened my curiosity as to why are people so different? And in spite of all the psychology I've done and licensing and all that, what really changed my picture was when I became a mediator of workplace conflict. And I was puzzled, like, why do people look at things so differently? But that's when I delved into the 4 styles of communication, that those of you who are familiar with this. It's a tremendous body of knowledge that will give you so much insight and clues to where people are coming from. And yet most of us have no knowledge of this, unless you've been studying the field of communications. And no matter what your profession is, again, if we don't have these basics of understanding, we're missing out on a whole lot of clues right in front of us. Pacing, timing, focus, asking questions, making statements. And if I had my way, everybody would be taking a class in basic psychology and communication. I haven't been successful in that yet. And the other thing too is that not only continuing that process of self-development, but also other development. We have a role as leaders to really mentor and model. And I think that's what our youth are lacking today, why we're so disconnected. But emotional intelligence is something that not only comes naturally to some of us, because we naturally tend to evolve as we get older, life experiences, but it's learnable. And we also know that some professions, while incredibly smart and intelligent, lack basic emotional intelligence. And to Alian, lawyers are in the lower part of emotional intelligence. And you probably already know that. And so that's where I get excited about potential people. It's using what we know about communication and sharing that, modeling that, educating others about it, and letting them experience it in positive ways. Too often we're taught to, not communicated with. Thank you.
I did a training in team coaching a couple of years ago, and one of the things that really struck with me was one of the people leading this was Peter Hawkins, and he said that there's not difficult people, it's just we haven't found out a way how to communicate with them. And I love that, because it really puts the empathy of trying to understand the other person. And I think that's what communication here with present is about maintaining that curiosity to understand the other person's perspective. And if we can be aware that when we communicate, then we can really understand each other better and have less conflicts, and I think contribute to a better world.
This is a good question, and I'm just thinking about all of the great leaders that I have worked with over the time, and what I found is the ones who communicated with empathy, but also sharing what was truly going on. What did they know, what did they not know? And so frequently, you get information, it's piecemeal, or it's not correct, and when you're trying to build connection, not holding something back, but letting people know, this is something I don't know, or this is something that is out of my scope, but so that people can build that trust and that authenticity. And when you're being present, you really know within you, this is not within my scope. And as we are progressing and talking here, I know we keep talking about soft skills, but I did want to mention that I don't see them as soft skills, I see them as professional development skills, because we each are trying to develop more as humans. And as you said, soft is not easy, but it is a practice to make progress.
So early in my business career, and also I was a former Army officer in the U.S. Army. Early in my career, I was a bad leader and a bad communicator, and here's why. Because I would say things like, well, I thought I said this 3 times, why didn't you get it? Well, I was very clear, right? You showed it here, right? And I was putting a lot of the blame on the receiving party. I didn't become a better leader and a better communicator until I started taking this concept called extreme ownership from Jocko Willink, where all the responsibility lies on me, the communicator. So if my team member isn't clear on what task I gave them, that's not their fault. That's my fault. And now this has become a core competency and a culture in our leadership team, in our agency. So with any of our leaders or our staff members, right, when the other party doesn't get the communication, we don't blame them, we look inwards first. And that has helped us tremendously. And I think being a good communicator, being a good communicator comes from taking extreme ownership and having leadership to do so.
Yeah, just kind of going off that. I mean, we're not their parents, okay? So we can't say what you said. We're not their parents. We're there to be versatile, authentic, and I love what you said too about honesty. If you don't have the answer, it's okay. You can even say, I don't have the answer, but I can find it out. I know a group of people that I can work with and come back to you with that. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to just be who you are, because you don't want to get them bad information just because you want to fill the gap. But I love that we are not their parents, and we have no right to tell them, really, you're doing that again?
Right.
You know, we need to talk to them like they're adults, and that they are valuable people with valuable gifts and valuable information that we can share together.
Communication for me, you know, what I've observed is that most of the people communicate for themselves. The truth is, you never communicate for yourself, you always communicate for the other person. Because at the end of the day, what is communication? Exchange of energy and exchange of information. And if we look at the world in which we are living today, communication, quality communication is a new age success tool. I think it's become a totally non-negotiable skill. And believe me, what was supposed to be soft skills earlier are the hard skills today. And the hard skills of earlier days are soft skills today. Now coming to the, again I'm changing gears now, the human potential part. Everywhere we hear human potential, and tomorrow again, in my presentation you're going to hear human potential. Do you think that the human potential is unlimited? Or it is limited?
I'm going to say something that's probably not very consensual, maybe, but I think the human potential is limited by the ability of that extreme ownership that Jocko was talking about. Because what in society we see a lot here is that we try to bring about a sort of diversity and inclusion and making everybody feel good every time. And I think maybe we've gone too far on that and it backfires, because what I see a lot is people not getting any ownership of anything about their life, because I should be included, I should be able to do this, I should be, everything should work out in the exact sense of what they thought. And I have 4 kids, so sometimes I see it in my kids, sometimes I see it in the chatter that we hear. And I think that is what's actually limiting human potential. It's not taking ownership for our lives, not taking ownership for our results, not taking extreme ownership for everything that happens. I caused that in one way or the other. Maybe in my action, maybe in my inaction. And when we take that extreme ownership, we also take extreme power to ourselves. Because if I made it, I can change it. If I don't take ownership, I can never change it because I didn't make it. So, yeah, I think that's a limiting, and the limit is within us.
Thank you. Building on that. Yes, I see the human potential being limited by fixed and narrow perspectives. And so we heard earlier today about the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And that's the thing, life is all about continuing to learn. And so if we are, this is my opinion and this is my way or the highway, we're not going to get very far. And yet too often, leadership from the past is behaved just like that. We say today. I won't go there, but anyway, so it's really being open to different perspectives. I'm going to share with you one of my tools that I developed again as a mediator. It's like how do I help people see things differently? And then this conflict that we need to resolve. And so to me, it's really about perspective taking. And through that, then it's also the influence we have on people. And then I go back to EQ, our self-awareness, our self-management, our other awareness, and our relationship management. And I'm really excited to share my revelations from today with everyone's talk about adaptive intelligence, etc. So I've got a few things to share with you tomorrow. So all about perspective taking. How am I showing up? And am I willing to listen to other people's ideas and how they see things? Because a good leader, as was said over here, doesn't know all the answers, but they know how to ask questions. How do you see it? Help me understand. And let's go to yet another source. So, perspective taking.
So I'm going to talk from a perspective of coach, where we see human potential as unlimited. And I see this in my client. And what limits our potential is our limits of self-belief. Our patterns, I call it the dinosaur's tail, because the patterns of past cultures, experiences that might limit ourselves to what we think we're capable of. And the wonderful thing being a coach is when you start, you work with a client and you see them grow and you see them understanding the potential they have. That's why I love what I do, because when you see people understanding that I hold the solutions and answers myself, you see, it's amazing. It's one of the best things. So I would say that human potential is unlimited, but we have to be open to wanting to understand that ourselves and understand that we are the experts in our own lives.
This is hard for me because my response is it depends. Because sometimes individuals really dedicate and they have a lot of potential, they give themselves stepping stones and really work on opening themselves up. And I keep thinking of different gurus in the past who have really isolated themselves and really focused on their mental, physical, emotional abilities. But they don't tend to interact as much with others. And so it doesn't challenge them as much. And then I'm thinking about the individual who says, oh, I got a job interview. Well, congratulations. Oh, well, I don't like the job, so I told the interviewer that I just don't want to work for them because it's not what I want. So it's that balance between, taking ownership versus being so into what you want that you can grow your potential, but it may not have as much of an impact. So, understanding where you are on that spectrum.
I think everyone else here has given great answers, because I agree it has a lot to do with your self-belief, but a bit more controversial take. I think I look at potential, because I talk to my team about this all the time. We hire salespeople all the time. So it's like, is this guy good? Will he be better? Potential, right? I look at potential like a level, like a game level, right? Imagine you have level 1 to level 100. So in that sense, there is a limit, because there is a level. You know, there's a max level you can reach. The controversial take I have is that I think every human being has a different max level capability. So what I mean by that is I think some people could go up to level 90. Some people can only go up to level 45. And a lot has to do with culture, background, development, disabilities, right? It's just being it's just being human. However, I think the good news is that if you're willing to grow and transform and evolve and become a better person, I do think you could push up that level. So for example, if I was a level 20 human and I was aware of that and I accepted it, but I was willing to change, I could probably bump it up to level 25, level 30, level 40 if I wanted to. Because the ultimate question goes back to like, do you want it bad enough? And I feel like if you do, and we don't have those limiting beliefs, then that's where I guess unlimited, that word comes into play.
I'm going to continue again. For a long time I worked with individuals with disabilities, children, and what I learned through that was that so many people working with them limited them. And so they started to limit themselves. And I'm not a person that really likes to limit people. I like people to fly to the stars. And in a way I think, though there's of course a top, but we have to have unlimited because we wouldn't be using AI. We would, somebody thought of it. Somebody out there way back thought of, oh, let's build a boat and go across the water, There's always human invention that's coming out of us. And when we can encourage that in each other, who knows what, we may go past the stars.
Well, human beings are teachable, perfectible, and trainable. And the reason is simple. We are the only species which has the ability to think about its thinking, be aware about its awareness, and be conscious about its consciousness. Well, we have 5 minutes now. So 1 minute each, no question, no controversial, me putting you on the spot. Whatever you want to share with the audience, 1 minute each.
Just a last thought on this human potential thing. And again, we have a great panel, great answers. If we think about the human with a small age, yes, we have our limitations. But when we think about the human with a capital H, there are no limits, because as a team, as a tribe, as a group, we can do much more than individual. And all of these things, the boat that crosses the ocean, the wheel that turns the car, the IA that turns a lot of our businesses, everything is product of a team, of a group of people. And in that sense, well, then there is no limit, of course.
Great answer. Because yes, I share the perspective or the continuum that was talked about. One of the reasons I get so excited about bringing neuroscience, basic neuroscience, to the understanding of people at all levels is for that very reason. Because it's up here where we can achieve all those things as human beings. But unless we learn to self-manage what happens between here, our reactive brain, and what's here, where we process it and manage the emotional content in between, we're not going to get there.
What am I going to say that's really clever now? Yeah, exactly. Blah, blah, blah. I want to just emphasize on the gut brain. So access. So you have a, you have a second brain, and that's your gut. And if you listen to your gut, then it's a very powerful tool. And it's taking ourselves down from the thinking mind into the heart and the sensing mind. Don't know where I want to come with that, but that was what I wanted to at least lead this panel with.
Thank you. I was along the same lines as the fact that when we're being present, and we have our thinking mind, but we also have a heart mind and our gut mind. And sometimes I tell people, we have to know what we're thinking, we have to know what we're feeling, and the emotions how we're interpreting it, so that we can access our intuition and live with our values, our strengths, and our gifts, so that we can share it with others and that we can feel as if we are members of society and connecting and being our best selves each day, so that we can live our life until our life ends. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I do like a motivational minute, my takeaways, so my thoughts. I think when these group of researchers, they interviewed people at their deathbed who are about to pass away, especially older in life, the one thing people said was the regrets they had was not the things that they did, but the things that they wish they did, the things they didn't do. So I think all of us here, mentors, entrepreneurs, coaches, take the risks. Ask that lady or man out that you love, right? Fail forward and just keep growing and transforming every day.
It's really hard for me to sit down and do this, but every single one of you, every single one of us has so much potential. You gotta live your dreams. You gotta not be afraid or do it afraid and get out there, because you got in this room people that can change the world. And if we group together, we can really smash it down.
Okay guys, let us live our dreams. Let us give a big hand to the 6 beautiful panelists. And I did put them on a hot seat and in a corner by asking certain hard questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.